Welcome to Curious Joel, a show about curiosity taking us deeper into the topics of people's passion and interesting conversation. I'm your host, Joel Circo. Today we have two guests. One has been on on this program a few times. I'd like to welcome back Rose Circo, my older sister, and a new guest, Jackie Bender. Jackie, tell us about yourself a little bit.
I am a family friend of the Circos. I've known Rose for 13 years now, which makes me also a friend of yours now for 13 years. And I'm a student at ASU. I'm studying forensic science, and I'm just happy to be here.
Awesome. And for those listening, we're actually not going to be talking about the forensic science today. That's actually for another episode, another time. What we're talking about today is actually something that me and Jackie deal with on a regular basis. We both have depression. Now, Rose, we brought on because she doesn't deal with that. And so that gives us kind of an outsider's or quote unquote normal perspective on things, which is kind of laughable if you know my sister and my family. That Rose is the normal one in this particular conversation. But just so that the listeners out there that don't deal with depression have somebody that can relate to that, like, oh, that's what that is. Yeah, anything you'd like to add to that, or?
No, I think that's good.
So I wanted to start off with like what depression actually is, because there's a lot of misconceptions about there of like, oh, a thing happened today and I'm a little sad. That means I'm depressed, which kind of bothers me. And this bothers me with a lot of words that have serious meanings that are used in a lighthearted way of like, oh yeah, I'm a little depressed. My yo-yo broke. It's like,
yeah, it's frustrating when like they use big words for small feelings of like
right.
trauma, or like that traumatized me, like watching that one show, or like my car broke down or whatever. And it's like, yeah, those are things that you can get upset about, for sure.
Right. And it's like, okay, you're having a down day,
yeah.
Sure. But like, I was looking for a good definition of it, and I found a few that were not quite up to par of like what it is. But I found a few descriptors of it that I feel like met what it actually is from other people that I've talked to. And that is, it is characterized by persistent sadness, a lack of interest or pleasure in previously rewarding or enjoyable activities. It also disturbs sleep and appetite. Tiredness and poor concentration are also common. And I'll find the other one in a second because I apparently didn't stay on that particular tab, but I will find it in a minute. But it's lack of motivation, that like empty feeling inside. And we used it a couple words earlier.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we started recording, and I told you a story about how I described depression to my friend, and how it's basically like you're like a Walking Dead person, because you don't feel like you even have a life worth living. And you took it a step further and said, I forgot what exactly you said, but
I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
It was like an hour ago.
Yep, a long time ago in my brain. But for me, it's like it's a sense of like I'm a burden on everyone around me. Like,
yeah,
everyone's life would be easier if they didn't have to deal with me. That like, and I even said like, I've had times where I asked my wife like, why am I even worth half of the effort you put in?
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I'm worth it. I feel like I'm a waste of space and time for everybody. I lack motivation. I don't feel like anything means it. Like, meaning is lacking. And like, just, it's like going from color vision to like color, like grayscale of like, yeah, this is it.
It's like a constant like weight put on the scale.
Yeah. It's an energy drain. It's just like you just don't want to do anything. It's just weight. And like I want to go in that more of like just what does like depression mean to you, like personally?
It's a big question.
Yes, it is.
Because I feel like it has multiple layers to it. It's not
Sure.
just like and it means X.
Well, like, so when
You know?
when you're talking to somebody else about like, yeah, I deal with depression, what are you most commonly referring to? Like, what are you trying to convey to them usually?
I think it's more of like that I have, I can't speak for you or anyone else
No.
listening. Um, but for me, I think it's more of like I genuinely struggle with like a mental battle
Mm-hmm.
of like what you were saying, like, am I a burden? Did they want to spend time with me? Or was that like an invite just because?
Pity or guilt or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't I don't know how to explain it. Like, I don't generally tell people very much about my depression
Mm-hmm.
because I also have had people, I don't know if you've had this experience, but like people belittling it or
Mm-hmm.
like comparing it to someone else's struggles.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like something I'm very conscientious about, like
Mhm.
who I talk to about it. But I think I just like people to know, like, it's so much more than just I'm sad.
Right.
It's something way deeper. It's a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know.
Well, so for me, when I'm trying to like tell people about depression, like I'm trying to let them know that like for me it's emotional dysregulate. My emotions don't necessarily meet things very well. I was telling you too earlier, like this morning, because just being very transparent, like I am battling with depression right now. Like today, last week or so, at very least. But like today, I was listening to this cover of "Goodbye Dixie." Now, I'm not ashamed to cry when things are sad. I'm not one of those guys that like I never cry, but like I don't usually cry to songs, but I cried for almost the entire song of "Goodbye Dixie," and then my brain decided you didn't cry enough, so hit repeat on it, listen to it again, cried more, and then like, but it's like I don't like my emotions don't necessarily match appropriately the events happening.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's numbness.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's overreacting. It is someone's like, hey, you know, you could have like you did a pretty good job on the table. Like, wait, I didn't do a perfect job. And like it's like, okay, wait, no, you it was good. It's like, but it wasn't excellent. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like it can be not equal to what like the outcome is not equal to the input. Like
Well, and you were also talking about earlier your ADHD, and I feel like that's also a big part of it too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't mean to like throw that
No,
in,
no.
but like I think that also plays into your depression.
yeah,
Just like I think my seizure medications also play into my depression.
yeah.
So I think that is like a contributing factor to like
Absolutely. Yeah.
what.
Yeah. So but getting back to the depression, like it's something that like, I want them to understand. Like, don't take anything that I like feel personally towards you.
Yeah.
But also, like, I want them to understand, like, this isn't just me being emotional or whatever. Like, I have in my life, I was laden with the burden of realizing that I used to not talk about my depression. I used to just silently battle it, and I learned that being upfront with it, even though I'm not the I don't want to usually. It's not like I just want to tell everybody. I don't want to tell everybody. I want to keep it to myself. This is my burden. I get to suffer alone in silence. That's what I want with depression. But what I've realized is that the more I talk to other people about it and inform them and let them know, like, what I want from you is this, and I'll lay out like things that they can do, and also let them know, like, no, there's nothing really you can do today. Like today it's just bad. Just understand that, like, usually it's also going to like my humor. Don't take my humor seriously right now. I usually, during my depression, make some of my darkest jokes. That I have to make sure people understand. I don't deal with, and I'm very grateful and blessed that I don't deal with like thoughts of suicide, but like I joke about it a lot with depression, and it's a way to like, for me, it honestly alleviates like the stress and pain of depression without having to do anything. It's a humor coping mechanism that actually functions for me.
Yeah.
But like I've had people that got really, really worried, and I'm like, oh, I haven't told you. This is just how I cope with it.
Right.
I've never struggled with those thoughts. But like just kind of helping them understand, just even understand, not even like actively help, but just like not like, this is not the time to tell me that like, you know, your shirt and shoes don't go together. Like this is not the appropriate time to tell me trivial negative things.
Right.
But yeah.
So are there? Sorry.
No, right. No. I just think that's just what it means to me.
So what are some of the things that you would suggest for people, like when your friends are like going in that dark, twisty place? Would you say like, these are the things that work for me? Obviously we can't speak for everyone who struggles with this, but like, what would you say work for you? So
for me, like when I talk to my doctor about like what my depression means and like what happens, basically in simple terms, the feel good chemicals in your brain when you're depressed get cut. Like, and I'm trying not, I want to make sure you guys all know, like, this isn't exact numbers. This is just to give you an idea. But like, I was giving this example earlier of like with depression, if like going to and watching a movie with your friends usually gives you like 10 feel good chemicals, with depression, depending on how bad your depression is, you get like 5 of them. Like you get half of that like feel good chemical when you're depressed.
Yeah.
And like, so when you're going and doing these fun things, you're not getting as much enjoyment out of it as everyone else is.
Yeah.
And so your brain is not producing those, the negative chemicals, or the not necessarily negative, they're necessary for your brain to function, but like the ones that look at the less nice perspective of things, those kick in more. Mm-hmm. And so what my doctor basically told me is like, okay, there's a few things you can do. One is lots of sun. Being outside is good for you. That doesn't count if you work outside because it's different. Your brain, your body processes that input differently. But also like spend time with people. Do the things you really like, but do them more than you normally would, because you have to get that extra stuff to help your brain kind of even out that deficit. Mm-hmm. So like, my wife has been really helpful in like, as she's been learning how I work and how my depression works, of like, Joel, you're starting a battle with depression. Go find your friends, go play Smash Bros, go play D&D, go watch a movie, do something. Like she'll like start prompting me to like take action to help do those things that make me feel better more often than I normally would. Yeah. But the other one is like those genuine questions of like, and this is something I'll tell people when they're like, hey, how can we help? Is like, I usually like, hey, just like every once in a while, just check in, like really check in with me. Like, yeah, 100%. How are you actually doing? Because like hey, what's up? How's it going? Like that to me just bounces right off. But if like, hey, Joel, how are you feeling today? Like,
I feel like that actually really helps a lot, because it kind of like battles the lies that you believe about yourself. Yeah. If someone is actually checking in and like saying like, no, you're not those things that you think that you are. Like, yeah.
And like, I know for me, one of the hardest parts is like, me asking someone to do that feels very counterintuitive, because if I'm like, hey, Jackie, can you just, as you go through your day, ask me how I'm actually doing? My brain is telling us like, well, but then you just know they're just doing it because you told them to. Mm-hmm. But then when you do ask me like, hey, Joel, how are you actually doing today? Yeah. I'm like, oh, hey, that actually makes me feel better. Like someone actually went out of their way. He's like, but you told them, but like that, like, but you told them doesn't take effect because you can feel that genuine like care.
Yeah, for sure. That's a huge one.
Yeah. What about you? Like, what helps with your stuff?
That one for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, when my friends check on me, that means like more than anything, because I don't know for you, but like for me, I tend to believe the lie that I'm forgotten and I'm not enough. And so,
Sorry, I'm not laughing at you. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I was gonna say you need to clarify that laugh because
Sorry, I'll get
hold
to
on.
that in a minute. I just wanted to clarify to the listeners, I'm not laughing at Jackie.
I knew you weren't.
I know. I want to clear for the listeners that like I'm
And
not.
for the listeners, if he was laughing at my best friend, he would
get
pay
punched.
the price.
He would get punched.
As his older sister.
Really quick, I wanted to interject. We almost started this episode by saying this is going to be one of the funniest discussions of depression you'll probably ever listen to. That's also serious. But yeah, there's going to be some laughing, and understand that's partially all three of our coping mechanisms.
Absolutely, laughter is definitely my coping mechanism.
But yeah. But none of us are ever going to be laughing at each other.
No.
Or the issues.
No.
Anyway, continue, Jackie.
I know that I told you this earlier, but for me, it's being outside.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you've heard of this technique, but grounding, like being on the grass and
Dirt,
like being outside.
Like literally put your toes in the dirt, grab like some grass, like
holding something.
Do you want to know what I do? I really like it. I high five leaves.
You high five leaves? That's so cute.
It's really cute.
Yeah, no, like I did it stupid, like as a joke once, because like at my work,
try this now.
At work, there's like this like tree that like hangs down right next to like the stairs to like the staff room, and it's in my face. So I just like, hey buddy, how you doing? And just like high five the tree and walk past it. And so now I kind of do that, or like I'll grab and like pull a leaf through my fingers, like not pulling it off, but like just like.
Yeah.
Run my hand through the leaves and stuff like that of trees and like high five them. It makes it fun without like, trying to like, oh, I have to go walk over there and touch a plant. It's just like, high five.
I like it.
Yeah, and I was going to interject asking you guys about, does being outside and in nature help you? Because that is one of the things that, a lot of websites would say to do is to just, number one, be outside, but the other one is what you were talking about, grounding, Jackie, and where you're actually like touching, getting your feet or your hands in the dirt, in the grass, in the nature. Does it like help immediately, or does it like you got to spend some time in it? Like, I'm curious.
It doesn't help immediately always for me. Like, it has to be something I do at least a couple times during the week. It depends though, like, because sometimes if I'm having like a really off day and I just go sit outside, even on my hammock, and read or something, and I just am out in nature under the sun and feeling the breeze and everything, that really shifts my mood a lot, and it really helps me like come back to what I was doing or what I needed to do, and help me with my mindset of the day. So yes, it can be immediate, but it also can take some time. It just kind of depends. I don't know how to explain it. So there's variables to it. Of like, depending on like, for me, half of my job is outside.
Right.
So when I'm working, it doesn't help at all. Like, and we'll touch on this specific thing later, but like, because for me, when I'm working, that's stress. And me and Jackie were talking a little bit earlier, and like, I have an odd situation where I live in a tourist town, and the other option for being outdoors is usually where I work. So I work at a camp, and so I either go into town and deal with people that don't believe laws exist, the tourists that just kind of do whatever they want, and I get stressed out with that. Or I have to find a time to go back to like the camp when I'm not working, and like make it a time where I'm like going down to like the creek, and like, but when I do make those times to like go down by the creek or put up my hammock somewhere and sit, like, I find that it can help me take my mind off of the current problems that my brain is kind of mulling over and getting those negative things off of. Like I said, this goes back to like the feel good chemicals.
Right.
Going outside and like really immersing yourself in whatever it is. So like by the creek is a great way because you have that like audio input. If you can like put your hand or feet in like the creek,
Right.
or like in feeling that your brain is having so many different inputs that are almost 100% positive inputs, that means that the negatives don't have as much to feed off of. So in those cases, like, yeah, for me, it's more of an immediate effect. For me, I haven't had the option or opportunity really to do that on a regular basis to see what a long time of making sure I'm getting those like groundings or just like immersions in. But those usually, like, if I'm having like a really bad day, but for me, usually it's actually at night. So like nighttime, just soaking in the night sounds and stuff like that, it actually works better. Yeah. Really quick, I did want to address why I laughed.
Yeah.
So I laughed because for Jackie, being forgotten is a little different for me. For me, and I'm gonna try and keep the bus throwing light.
Oh my gosh.
But for me, like, I am a middle child. And I am also, and that extends beyond my family to like friends and stuff like that. Like even my bosses sometimes forget about my existence, like legitimately. And I'm like, it's not like, oh, who's Joel? It's just like moments here and there that it's like, shoot, right, Joel, we forgot to factor you into this whole thing. Or like, oh, right, we took a tally of everybody and you didn't get counted. Like those types of things. There's like legit, like forgotten moments in my life. And so when those lies come in that expound upon that and embellish on that, I'm really susceptible to that because I have been legitimately forgotten and left behind and stuff like that before.
Yeah.
Now, it's not, when those lies creep in, it makes it feel like no one's ever remembered me in my life. But in reality, it's occasionally. It's a little...
Occasionally you're forgotten, not occasionally you're remembered.
Well, yes. Yes. Thank you for the clarification. But like, yeah, I am occasionally forgotten, but those occasions tend to be fairly big occasions of being forgotten. Like being like my mom trying to find out where I am when I'm sitting 2 feet in front of her, or getting left home when my entire family went to church for an entire day.
It wasn't the entire day.
Well, when you're what, 4 or 5?
I would love to hear this story.
Some other time.
Yeah.
But like I was like 4 or 5, be left at home for the entire morning, and then a little bit into the afternoon, if I remember correctly.
I think you're remembering a little bit incorrectly.
Maybe, but still.
But
like,
yes, he was forgotten at home.
And there's been other instances of like that. Like it's not quite like Home Alone status of like we went on vacation and I got left home. But
that would be traumatizing.
That would be.
Yeah.
But like I have been legitimately forgotten, and it continues to happen. And so when those lies hit, they have more of a grasp on me. And so like when I get depressed and like something happens like that, or if like someone's like, oops, my schedule got busy, I'm like, no, it's fine. I just don't matter to you at all. And I understand. I'm easily forgettable. And it's like, well, are you though? Yeah.
What makes you like believe the lies of being forgotten, Jackie? Like what, do you have like a trigger for that one?
Oh, I'm sure I do.
That you would be willing to share, I guess, would be. Or that you remember.
I don't think it's like just forgotten. I think it's like it's a combo of like I'm forgotten / I'm not enough for people. And so I think it also kind of stems from like comparison. And so if like I see everybody else is going and doing something, or like all of my friends are over here and they're talking and no one's thought to like come say hi to me or something like that. It's like, am I doing something wrong? When I've like invited you to several things and you haven't invited me to anything. And So that can start triggering stuff. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
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 And speaking as the quote unquote normal person here, awkward. Like, to some extent, I think the general population deals with those things to a minor degree.
Right.
Right.
And
Like,
so
for
we
them,
can
sorry, go ahead.
so we can somewhat relate, but not to the deep level that the both of you and others who struggle with depression necessarily feel.
Yeah.
So I think in the minds of the general population, we correlate the same thing and we compare it and we go, oh, well, yeah, I felt alone at a party before and it made me sad. And so, like,
Yeah.
I know that it is not
Right.
the same thing.
Like, I would say that what most people feel is like FOMO, like the fear of missing out of like, I wasn't involved in that. I've heard a lot of people recently talking about things like, oh man, this really bums me out. Like, I'm not going to go. But for like,
I think people genuinely feel left out.
Yeah,
right,
I don't think
no.
that it's FOMO.
Well, I'm saying, so, sorry, let me rephrase this a little bit.
I'm giving him a skeptical look.
Thank you for the audible version of that, because they could not see that. But like, so they're like, with fear of missing out, that FOMO feeling, when most people feel that, it's like, oh man, I missed out. For us, it feels like it's, for at least for me, I'll speak for myself, it feels like people are maliciously not involving me in things. Where like the feeling alone at a party for the normal person is just like, okay, this is kind of weird, like no one's coming over and talking to me. It hits a lot harder for us.
Okay, so I think we're saying the same thing, but somewhat differently.
Okay.
Because the way that you're saying it also somewhat belittles the way that normal people feel. Because there are legitimate times where I'm sitting at a party.
No, yeah, okay. Okay, I think I see what you're saying.
like,
Yeah.
I'm not just like, oh man, I'm bummed that nobody's talking to me. It's like,
Right.
oh, do people even like me? Like, does
Yeah.
anybody want to talk to
Yeah.
me? Should I just go home now? So that's what I'm saying is like,
Right, okay,
it's
okay.
to a lesser degree and it doesn't affect
Like,
us.
it doesn't affect you, like, long term.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas you can get over it in, like, a day or so and be like, fine, like, that was a bad party.
Yeah.
And
Sometimes a week, but you know.
But
I'm an introvert and I'm sensitive, so it happens. But
same. Which is why we're best friends. We get each other. But yeah, for someone who already struggles like with figuring out their emotions and like how other people impact their emotions and vice versa. Yeah. It's harder for them to like compartmentalize that and like walk forward in it and being like, you know what? It was what it was. Let's just try to move forward, you know?
Yeah.
At least for me, like, that's harder to do.
Right. Well,
so.
Yeah. And I wasn't trying to belittle the other side of things at all. And I apologize if that's how it felt.
I didn't think you were.
Right.
I just wanted to.
Sure. But like, for me, like, I have legitimately left, like, walked out of a party because I felt like people would be having more fun if I wasn't there.
Yeah.
Like, that I am bringing this party down, that I'm the reason that it's not like laughing all the time and everything. Like,
hey, same. So like that's what I'm saying is it's not exclusive to you guys.
Sure.
I'm sorry to say you don't get the corner on the market on that one thing.
Sure.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But it is to a different degree that you guys feel it. But this we talked about fear of missing out and everything and whether you're forgotten or remembered or if you're enough. And so when you're in your depression season, I don't know what you want to call it, but like when you're going into depression bout. Okay.
Yeah. I call it a cycle.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
When you're in that season, whatever time period that is, does it help to have people invite you to things? Or does it depend?
I think, well, I'm just going to answer it for me and then you can answer it.
Sure.
I think generally, yes, invite them, but also don't expect them to come.
Right.
Because, like, don't put that expectation on them, but always invite them. because like it's always like they wanted to have me there. That's nice.
So like a
No
hey,
pressure.
hey Jackie, I just wanted to let you know if you're interested in coming, I'd love for you to be there. If not, that's okay. But we have this thing going on.
Yes.
Would you like to go?
That would be perfect.
Yeah. And I would agree with that, and that's something that even when I'm like heading into that next bout with depression, like having people just acknowledge, like I've had people, and these are some of my nice friends that like do this, who are like, hey Joel, and this is just because they know me and they know I'm okay with it, but like I know you don't like doing this particular activity we're doing, but I want you to know that we're thinking of you, and if you decide to come, we're fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to let you know we're going and doing something and thinking of you.
Yeah, like if you want to come.
Yeah, and it's like I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but like something like I'm notoriously known for not liking this thing,
right?
And like, but they know like Joel wants to be invited and know that we're thinking about him. And it's like, well, but maybe I got into like My Little Pony and I want to watch the new movie. It's like, you know,
you have bronies.
I know a lot of bronies.
Yeah, he does.
And again, nothing against that, but like something like that's like the only thing I could think of is like I'm not a big fan of My Little Pony. I have lots of people in my friend group that are big My Little Pony fans, and like
that's great.
If they were to like, hey Joel, I know you're not into My Little Pony. We're gonna go watch the new premiere movie, or like there's I don't know what it is. So like.
It's great in that too. Unfortunately, you guys
he
can't
even had hand motions and everything.
I've been telling that I always have hand motions. But like them like saying like, hey, we're thinking of you.
Yeah.
If you decide you want to just be with us for that time, great. And if not, we understand. We want to know like we were thinking of you when we're as friends, you know. Yeah. And that goes a long way for me. Like that invitation with no pressure, like you said.
Yeah. Or even like super low key things. Like,
hey, we're chilling.
Hey, we're just like watching a movie. You want to come over and just watch a movie? You can even come in your pajamas. Like, like no pressure to do or be or wear anything in particular.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So.
And then I guess a somewhat follow-up question to that would be, and like Joel, you said that you are pretty open with the people that are close to you about when you're going through depression, and in that bout or starting that bout. And I'm trying to keep these words straight in my brain. And then
I will understand if you use season or cycle. I will understand.
And then for you, Jackie, you tend to keep it more to yourself. So. I guess this question is more directed towards you, Jackie, of like, how would your friends be able to know, like, how to approach you with an invitation if they don't know if you're in a cycle of depression? You know what I'm saying? Like, is there, like, if they just straight up ask you, hey, we're doing this thing, you want to join us, and you're dealing with a cycle of depression, is that...
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
It's on airplane mode.
Alarms still go off, unfortunately.
It's fine.
I don't remember where the question was exactly, but is that oh gosh.
You okay there?
My brain is sort of shorting out right now. Okay. Is that a detriment, or is it still okay that they ask you because they don't know? You know?
If I'm understanding your question correctly.
If she understands her question correctly, too.
I understand my own question correctly.
So if someone asks me to hang out with them, but they don't know I'm depressed, and then so like the expectation might still be there to go, kind of thing?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Cool, I understood you.
Yay! I'm so glad.
I actually feel like I do tell my closest friends that I'm not feeling 100% or I am going through something. So I feel like the people who would invite me to things would know.
Okay. Well, okay. let's take the hypothetical then. Like, if it's somebody that, just randomly decided to invite you to something, and they just had that expectation, and they sent you this invitation, how would you want to respond to that?
Can you give me like a scenario of like, okay, like a friend but not a close friend? Like, is this
like you've got your inner circle of friends, of like your closest friends that you tell things, you tell them all the stuff, and then you've got the circle right outside of that where they're pretty close, but they're not like your intimate friends, and one of them invites you like, hey,
yeah, I don't know. I think it would be one of those things I'd have to figure out, because I don't want to like lie to them either.
Right.
And because that I have had friends who I want to choose my words carefully. I don't want what I'm mentally going through, because I truly believe depression is like an illness. And I don't want that to be the reason I disregard my friendships. So I want to make sure that they understand everything if something did come up. So if they did invite me and I was having like a really bad season, I think I would just be honest. I think I'd just tell them like, I'm having a rough day and I don't think I'll be there. So.
Yeah. Okay. Because, I mean, I feel like as a normal person, as the general population, I think a lot of people don't know how or necessarily when to invite people to do things or how to approach it. Whether they know that there's a season that's going on of depression or whether they're not sure. And so there's that fear that, maybe inviting them might be like a worse thing than not inviting them.
Yeah.
Is that the case? Is it worse to not be invited or to be invited?
I feel guilty when I say no sometimes. And that probably would be one of the scenarios I would feel guilty, because I don't have that close relationship. Like, for instance, my fellowship group had like a barbecue a few weeks ago, and I just had a rough week, and not necessarily because of depression, but just because it was just a rough week. And so I told them in advance, like, I'm only staying for a couple hours and I'm leaving, like, I'm not staying past like X time. And even when I got home, I was like, I didn't even like say hi to this person. I didn't say hi to that person. And I was like, you know what? Like, you went, you told them in advance you're gonna like leave early. So like, you made your decision, just like deal with it. And so I don't know if that answers your question, because I could totally see myself doing something like that.
Yeah. I guess my question is a very like vague, because I can see it depending on the circumstances or the situation or the person or people,
right,
or what's going to happen. So there are a lot of variables in that.
Yeah. I think to the other side of that, because I'm extroverted.
You extrovert over there.
Yeah. I'm an extrovert, and so like I'd always want to be invited to things, and let me say no for me.
Yeah.
And so like I'd want the invitation, and I'm a little different, where like I'll be like, if I'm like, okay, you invite me to go bowling with people, and I'm just like, that's just too much for me. I'm like, hey, I can't, like, this is why, like, I'm sorry, but thank you. I appreciate the invitation. Don't stop inviting me. Like, I say that phrase a lot to people. They're like, you need to come over and have dinner at our place. Like, I thank you. I can't right now, but don't stop inviting me.
That's a good phrase.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Joel.
Yeah.
I have had a lot of time to come up with that. But I use that a lot, because like I realized because I turned down things so often. This is before I like got into the habit of like telling people like very honest, and people like ask, like even like coworkers when they're like, "How are you doing?" Depressed. Like I just start answering that as like being very honest, and like once I got to that point, I'd start looking back on things, and like when I would just tell people like, "Oh yeah, I can't do that," like I'd stop getting invitations for things because well, Joel always says no,
Right.
and so I started realizing, no, that it didn't say no because I don't want to do the thing. It's because I can't do the thing.
Yeah.
Like
it's not that I
it's
don't wanna hang
draining.
out
It's
with you.
tiring.
It's super tiring.
I mean, I had to say no to a family birthday party yesterday because like going down to San Diego in a car for 2 hours and being around people and feeling like I have to be happy to celebrate someone else's birthday and feeling guilty if I wasn't happy celebrating their birthday was too much. But on the other side of that, and like, I'm just kind of hope people don't listen to this before I get to explain it on my family chat. But like, instead, I stayed home for the morning, did almost nothing, and then for the rest of the day till about midnight, I played D&D. That doesn't have that same draining effect of the same pressure of, well, but if like I don't want to make my nephew be sad because well Uncle Joel's over there like looking like he died.
Yeah.
But with D&D, if I do that, people are like, oh well, it's whatever. Like that pressure difference means that not having to go anywhere and being able to leave whenever I want to was a lot different. It's like one of those things like if you just say it without any context, it sounds really terrible. Like, oh, Joe blew off a family party to play D&D. It sounds really terrible.
Right.
But if I factor in like, well, that one I'd be just miserable.
It makes you feel better. I blew off a family event yesterday too.
Go team!
I was like,
and I blew off both of them.
Wait, what's your excuse? You're not depressed?
I literally, Joel stayed home and watched Grey's Anatomy and slept. I was like, I'm done.
I wish I could have slept. That would be nice.
Now I feel like I have to explain that I came over and I hung out with Jackie. So
she made sure I didn't die.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a big plus.
Maybe I should explain that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
This conversation has gone in an interesting direction that we did not anticipate. Go ahead, Jackie.
So I have a seizure disorder, like I mentioned earlier, and I had a seizure in May, and I'm not allowed to be left alone overnight in case something happens, which probably won't because I took my meds, but just in case, on the off chance that something could, someone needs to be there. So
right.
So that's why I didn't go, was because I was with Jackie, making sure she didn't die.
Yeah.
From seizures. Randomly.
Yeah. You didn't want to find my body in the shower, right?
Nope.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said, very funny, very laughing podcast out of it. Serious subject.
Or in bed.
Oh my gosh! Don't even get me started.
Really?
Anyway, such fun topics. But getting back to the point of like, always invite. Like for me, it's always invite me.
Yeah.
Because that reminds me that you actually do care.
Right.
Like if people stop inviting me, like, and I've had this happen, like I said, where it's like, oh, so I guess I'm not that close of a friend anymore. Like, and that's a fear that I have constantly is like, which is stupid because like aforementioned ADHD, if I don't see you physically in my presence every so often, I forget you exist. Like just straight up like, and then I'll like see you again. I'm like, oh, hey, how's it going? And I'll pick up like nothing ever happened. But like, so it's 100% for like, if you're looking at it objectively, like it's a very unfair scale because for me, if you stop inviting me, I think you basically, oh, Joel's the worst person I've ever met. I never want to talk to him again.
Yeah. I think you brought up a good point though earlier with like your personality is an extroverted personality.
Right.
I'm 100%, well, not 100% introverted, but I'm very close.
You're right.
And I love to be around people, but I don't always like being obligated to speak to them. Yes. Mm-hmm. I love presence. I love like knowing that they're there.
Right.
but I don't always like being obligated to ask them questions or having them
Emotional
ask me.
support friends.
Yes, of course. So I think that also is where the invitations
Sure.
would be like, please don't make me go,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I also have those moments where like I don't want to talk to people. I just need to be sitting near people.
Yeah.
I have those moments too of like
That's a very introverted thing.
yeah, but like there's times where, like just for me it's like they care enough to be around here. You can sit there reading your book.
Yeah.
You can sit there like you can take a nap for all I care. Just you being in the same vicinity as me means that you are thinking of me.
Right.
Right.
And you don't you I'm trying to figure out if there's a better way to phrase this, but I don't think I can phrase it. Like, but basically, you have nothing better to do. Like there's nothing that is drawing you away from me. Like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you care enough to just sit there with them.
Right.
And that's important.
That's more important than other things that you could be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, so I do have those moments where like I don't want to like I'll sit in the back of the party, just be like, hey, thanks. I'm glad just to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that does affect that question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like for you, Jackie, it's more of it depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation and the people because, okay, so me and Rose are in several clubs together now. We're in a restaurant/food club. We're in a movie club together, and I'm in a book club. She's not in that one.
Ooh.
I know.
So it's more exclusive. Wait, Rose, why aren't you in a book club? Hold on.
No, it's fine.
Okay, all right. Discussion for another time, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry. Rose, my sister's a very big bookworm,
Yes,
so it took me a few seconds to... Anyway, sorry. Back to what you're saying. So you're in a book club, not Rose.
Not Rose, but she's in the food club
Sure.
and the movie club.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I was going to answer your question in some form of like go into those things where it's like I know those people, I see them regularly once a month, and like there's no like obligation to
Low
go
pressure.
somewhere because it's like we already know we're going to just eat a bunch of food tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Or we know we're just going to watch Dirty Dancing or...
Right. It's known quantities.
Yeah, that stuff is like my jam.
Okay.
So,
I almost forgot I had a book that had questions in it. So really quick, I did want to talk a little bit about like, and this is I know everybody that deals with depression has had these things, but what are some like not so helpful like questions or suggestions that you hear? Because I know for me, my least favorite is when people are like, have you ever just tried thinking happy thoughts?
oh yeah, that one's dumb.
And it's like,
I mean,
but, like,
there is to an extent you have to learn to think more positively, and
Sure.
I think that's probably what they're going for, but like...
It never comes across that
But like,
way.
okay,
Yeah.
so we'll talk about why they're not as helpful as people think they are. But like, what are some of like? I just want to hear some of the phrases that like get some of them out there.
Oh, just like, well, just stop being so sad.
Yeah,
And it's like, well, just stop being depressed. And it's like,
Yeah.
if I could, I would.
just smile.
Yeah.
It'll cure it.
And it's
Or
like,
it's just in your head,
yeah.
which I find laughable because it
I mean,
technically is.
It is in my head.
No, I don't have a depression arm. Like,
Yep. It's not like in my spleen.
no, that's where most of your stuff is in
Yeah.
your head.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, yes, you're not wrong, but you're also definitely wrong.
Yeah.
What else?
I don't know. I asked you this question earlier. I don't remember if you answered it, but have you had like people compare your stuff to
Oh.
like other people's pain? Because I
Yeah.
had like,
Well, there's kids starving, and like, at least you have a house.
yeah.
It's like,
What are you so sad about?
Right. What do you have? You got good stuff going for you. You got a job. It's like,
yeah, you have a wife. Why are you sad?
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those I've had that one of like, you got so many things to be happy about. It's like, you're right.
I do.
I'm not sad. I'm depressed.
There is a difference.
Right. The comparison is another one that's like,
it's like, that's not helpful. Do you find comparison helpful in any other format
right.
in your life?
It's like, oh, you have a broken leg. Well, there's a guy that like he's dead. It's like, yep, that my leg's better now. It's crazy, man. I didn't realize people had died. What am I complaining about a broken leg for? Yeah, it doesn't help my situation at all.
No.
Sorry. Thanks for playing.
Nope.
Yeah.
I've been compared to like a guy who had cancer. And he's like, well, that guy is like still serving and he seems great. And even though he has stage 4 cancer, what are you so sad about? I'm like, well, now I feel even worse.
Right.
For like
It's like,
coming to
oh.
you for help.
Right.
And because the person I was talking to was supposed to be counseling me.
And you're like, nope.
and that's all they did. They're like, well, what are you sad about? This guy is fine and he's serving still and it's like, oh,
Fantastic. Great.
good for them.
FYI, comparison just never works out well, pretty much no matter what
Yeah.
you're talking
Yeah,
about.
no,
It doesn't even have to do with depression or anything.
No,
Like,
I mean,
comparison
like,
is so...
that's why I did the whole broken leg thing. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
People have broken
Yeah.
their rib cage. That's great. Is my leg any better? No.
No. It's like, I'm sorry he has cancer. I really am.
And
It
that's
sucks.
great that he's still serving.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah. I would probably tell him he doesn't have to, though, if he has
Right.
stage 4 cancer.
Right.
You're allowed to not. If you,
It's like, well, he's half dead and he's still cranking away at the books. It's like, great. Why don't you get him to a hospital? It's like,
oh my goodness.
sorry. It's also
It's like that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that stuff is the really annoying part
it's
about
like,
it.
great. You're not helping me at all. You're just making me feel bad for feeling
Feeling
bad
bad.
beyond what I can control already.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm choosing like, man, I'm just gonna be sad today. Like,
Yeah, it's not like we want to be in a
No.
state where like our minds always spiral to worst case
Sure.
scenarios.
and really quick, this is not what we're talking about right now, but like this is something that like I want people to understand is like, and I'm glad that I have a wife that listens to this a lot, because there's oftentimes that like I have an emotional response to something that my intelligent brain understands what's actually happening, but that
Yeah.
doesn't change how I feel about the thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to remember what it was, but like a couple days ago, we were running some errands, and I was asked, what do you want to eat? I had been craving like sit-down Italian food for a while. And I said, Italian food. Now, it was like really late at night. We still had to drive an hour and a half back up the mountain, and we were all tired. We decided on Chick-fil-A because it was fast, easy, it was great, but my brain goes, my intelligence side goes, yep, that is a smart decision. I'm glad we went with that, because otherwise we would have been getting in bed about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
My emotions go, well, then why did you even ask me if you weren't even going to let me eat Italian food? And it feels like you don't care about me.
Mm.
And I got to tell my wife when we go home, like, well, I'm really glad we did get Chick-fil-A instead of sitting down at a restaurant.
Yeah.
But my emotions don't like the fact that you asked me what we should eat and we didn't eat that thing.
Yeah.
And like, that's where the whole just think happy thoughts doesn't help me at all. It's like, or like, you know, those perspective things, like, it's not like I'm choosing to feel this way.
Yeah.
That's the whole, like, that's kind of the whole thing with depression is you don't get to choose that.
Right.
It chooses that. It goes, okay, you're going to feel bad. It's like, why? I don't know. Just cause.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like
100%.
it's something that like the understanding of what is actually happening, the feeling of what happened can be very, very different.
Yeah.
And yeah. And that's something else that like people just like going back to like that, just think happy thoughts. It's like I can think all the happy thoughts I
Yeah.
want, and I can feel bad about all of them.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Any other like super helpful tips that people like throw at you?
Oh gosh.
And Rose, if you have heard us talk about any of these or just hear other people talk about them, you can throw in stuff too.
Yeah, I feel like you guys have said the most common ones
Sure.
that I have heard or heard said, or even said myself at some point. Because I'm sure I said some of those things to you when you were younger, Joel, because
Probably.
I was like, I didn't understand because I was also younger.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I know it is a hard concept for the general population to grasp the fact that you can't just turn it around and make it happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that there are so many things out there that people will say that you should try this, do that, do the other thing to make it go away and defeat depression for good. And
yeah.
I mean, I've seen lots of things, and some of them I have to cringe at a lot after knowing you guys and knowing that you try.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that you both work hard at it to be able to get yourselves back into a good place. And so after seeing you guys working through it, I can't say as much to like, oh, well, yeah, they just should have been happier or anything. Because
one more that I think about and this one's the hardest one for me, and that's from fellow Christians, is just pray that God takes the depression away. It's like,
which, if I can interject
sure.
real fast, I have seen that happen.
Sure.
So, I mean, I get it, but I also see where you're going with this.
So it's one of those things like, okay, first off, I pray a lot, especially I usually pray more when I'm depressed because like there's so much more and the world just feels so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it's also like, how many have you prayed for your leg to get better, right? Like,
yeah.
And it's something that people, I've had this issue with society for a long time of like, you have a physical problem, people respect it. You have a invisible problem, people are like, what's the big deal anyway?
Yeah.
Like, and there's a great video, I will have to find it and I'll post it in the description where it compares people talking to people, like if people talk to people with physical ailments the same way they talk to mental ailments of like people in wheelchairs and like you're just always bringing us down. Why do you have to use the ramp? It's like, yes, or like the broken leg and like all these things are like, if you just were as dismissive of these physical ailments as you are of these invisible mental ailments, like it's ridiculous. And like but like praying is great, don't get me wrong, but I've watched people pray for several weeks for a leg to just magically get better, and it heals faster maybe, but like it's not necessarily I prayed about it so you're happy now, right? It's like,
it's not it,
but it also makes me feel like I'm not praying well enough or often enough. Makes me feel bad about like,
or it's like you have a lack of faith
because you
didn't pray or didn't pray correctly,
right? And it's like it's very demeaning when people like Christians try to like, well, you prayed about it. I'm like, yes, we did. I have quite often actually.
Yeah. But it's like Paul prayed to have his
thorn in the side removed,
and it didn't.
Yeah,
and
so it's like
kind of like that, like
there's some things that like, and I don't want to get too far into like the theology of things,
right?
But like there's things that like that's part of what we our struggle with life. Yeah. We're gonna like, I expect to, and if this changes, great, but like I expect to deal with the depression for the rest of my life. Yeah. That's just the truth. That's But like telling me, pray about it. It's like, well,
that just feels like a slap on the hand,
right? Like,
you're not a good Christian,
right? And that's one of I think the least helpful because of that reason. And now, if we're okay with it, I want to kind of move on to like why these phrases are not helpful. These suggestions and stuff are not helpful. And I'll start with a little bit of deeper thing on the think happy thoughts, because thinking happy thoughts can, like Jackie, you were saying, like, it can help you get into a better spot, but it's not a magic cure, and it's not always going to help.
Yeah, there's science behind it. Like and I think that that's the problem with when people just say flippantly, like, think happily or think happy thoughts. Like, they need to be more specific if they want to give that advice, because I think they're talking about neuroplasticity, and that is when you train your brain to, when you have a negative thought, redirect it to a positive thought. That's fine. I'm all for science.
And it can help sometimes.
Yeah.
But, like, for me, that I have to be doing that at the very beginning of that, like, bout. Like, right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Or it helps at the end. But in that center, like, the thick of it.
Yeah.
I don't care what you're trying to tell me, how you're trying to turn this situation around to a happy one. It doesn't matter. It's a bad situation, and my brain's going to feel bad about it.
Yeah.
And, like, similar to the smiling thing. Scientifically, smiling tricks your brain into thinking you're happier than you are. But the problem is that focuses on happy, not depression.
And it's like happiness instead of true, like, inner joy, which I feel like that's the opposite of depression.
Sure.
Because, like, happiness is, like, fleeting and stuff, and joy is, like, a internal contentment.
Sure. Yeah. But it's one of those things, like, those things can be helpful sometimes.
Yeah.
But just telling me, well, if you just thought happy thoughts and smiled and had some pixie dust, it's like, wait, hold on, step back one. Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me, is just sprinkle some pixie dust on it and you'll fly back to Neverland.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on, like, a open gushing wound.
Right.
And it's like, you don't understand, like, I'm in the ER and, like, my chest is open. Like, that's how you have to think about someone with a mental struggle.
Right. And it's like, that would have helped when it was a small little paper cut.
Yeah.
At the beginning of my bout or season. At the beginning of my bout or season, like, that might have helped. Yeah. And I do try and do those things. Yeah. But once I'm in the middle of it, that's not doing anything. I know. That's just adding stress to what I'm trying to do. Right. And what my actual internal battle that's going on. Yeah. You're just distracting me from that with this. You're like... It's like, have you tried using paper shields against those cannons? It's like, no, I haven't, because I'm trying not to die. Yeah. But it's very, very, like, early stages, sure. Yeah. But usually that's not where they give you that advice. Right. And that's why it's not helpful. But, like, coming alongside your friend, like, when you see things like that downturn, that, like, slope down, you can start like, hey, today wasn't all bad, and pointing out those things can be helpful. Yeah, like pointing out their lies that they're believing. Yeah, that could be really helpful. That's actually helpful. And or like, and then writing like the contrast to that lie and being like, you believe this, flip it over, like this is actually what's true. That's really cool. I like that.
Affirmation.
Yeah.
It's like, don't believe the front, believe the back. Right. Like that would be super helpful.
That's really cool.
Ooh, ideas.
Hey, Rose.
Yeah. But like it's in your head thing, that's it's nonsensical, because like yes, it's a mental battle. For sure. That's what it is. Yeah. Congratulations, you got it on the head, but you also at the same time in your head, you think that means that I can just turn it on or off. Yeah. That you think this is a choice that I made to not feel great about the world. Mm-hmm. And that's where it's like, okay, technically speaking, the words you said are true. The idea you said is completely false. Right. Like, and it's just like, okay, great. You don't think I would have done that if it was just in your head, if this was just imagined? If this was like something really easy to deal with, you don't think I would have just kept smiling? Well, and I think that their point, but like, I think their point is like, they think it's made up. Like we put ourselves in this situation using like our imagination and stuff like that, and it's like, no, then you can look at actual like brain scans of people, depressed people, like what they're dealing with when they're having those bouts or their seasons or whatever, and you can look at the difference between someone that's not struggling with that, and you can see differences, and you can see like chemical changes and stuff like that. Like there's actual science to prove that it's not just like we just think we're depressed.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So just real quick, I wanted to interject on that
Sure.
thought of earlier we had discussed people who call things depression that are not depression.
Yeah.
And so I think, along with many other things, people who say that they're depressed who aren't actually depressed, they're just using that as a deep word to describe a lighthearted, not necessarily lighthearted, but like a lighter thing. And then they magically get better because they did something happy. And so I think that might be where the misconception lies with people giving that advice of just think happier thoughts. Because
honestly,
those people aren't truly dealing with depression.
Right.
And
It's
so
like,
they
I spilled my ice cream cone, so I bought myself a toy. I feel better. I'm magically cured.
Or like they are sad.
Right.
Sure. Like they are actually going through something,
like,
but they're not actually depressed.
Right. And so I think that might be kind of where some people, because they've seen, oh, well, this person said they were depressed and they thought happy thoughts and they're fine now.
Yeah.
So why can't you do that?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of where that comes from.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Like
So,
that
I'm glad that can help you guys because like
I mean, it doesn't help us in the
it
moment,
doesn't
but
help, but it helps you understand where they might be coming from, because they might think that person truly was actually depressed. And this helped them, and so therefore
pixie dust on it and magically
whereas they weren't actually dealing with it, and so you are actually dealing with it, and so it doesn't work the same way.
Yeah.
But just to throw some normal perspective.
I mean, I think that's true. I've seen that in my own family, so.
Yeah. And then I think going on to like the comparison stuff of like, well, there's people that have it worse. Mm-hmm. Again, that doesn't fix my problem. And also like, and this gets into tricky territory to navigate conversationally.
Good luck.
Thanks.
You need a compass?
I don't know. I can't use one correctly. It always points up, straight up. I don't know. Anyway, but like, yes, they're going through things, but my thing isn't a physical issue. It's not I don't have enough money to pay for things. It's not I don't have enough food. It is my brain going, things are bad.
Yeah.
It is a sense of hopelessness. Mm-hmm. It's despair. Yeah. There's no point. There's no meaning. Yeah. And that is not something that can be helped by, but you got food and a house over your, like a roof over your head. Yeah. That doesn't help with hopelessness. And absolutely not discounting anybody else's problems in life. Like, there's a lot of things that are way worse than depression. Tons of things. Yeah. But going back to,
it also shouldn't be discounted.
Right. But again, someone breaks their hand versus breaks their entire, shatters their entire leg. The fact that there's somebody out there with an entire shattered leg doesn't make your hand any better. Yeah. And it doesn't make that feel any better. You wouldn't go around punching somebody who's well, at least I didn't use a hammer. It's but it still hurt.
Jackie just got real uncomfortable.
All I'm thinking of is your hand, the bones in your hands popping out right now. Wow. And a hand surgeon having to go in and delicately cinching up all your bones together.
Yeah. But going back to my analogy, but punching someone and saying, well, at least it wasn't a hammer, doesn't help the punch at all. It doesn't make the punch any less painful. Yeah. Going oh, it could have been worse is great. Yeah. It could have been a lot better. You could have not hit me at all. Right. Yeah. That still doesn't help the fact that I'm currently in pain. Yeah. And that's where the comparison doesn't help us. It's not that we haven't sat down and thought man, my life could be so much worse. Yeah. It's I feel empty inside. I feel worthless to everybody. Yeah. I feel like I don't belong here. I feel like everybody's life would be easier if they didn't have to deal with everything in my life.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get fixed with status or how good your life is.
Absolutely.
It's 100% like a feeling, an emotion, and a position in your mental space.
Yeah.
And it's just like, again, comparing it to anything else doesn't help anybody ever.
Yeah.
Well, and also to that, like, rich people as well as poor people deal with depression.
Yeah, Jim
Right.
Carrey was like
So-
super depressed for a really long time.
And there's people that have it all in both wealth as well as family, as well as, you know, all the things. And then there's people who have nothing. And some of the people who have nothing are some of the happiest people. And so it really doesn't have anything to do with status, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It really is something else completely. And I mean, people would say from the outside looking in that both of you like have it really well, like really, really well, really good. Sorry, terrible grammar.
It's okay.
But like you both have like great lives if you think about it from an outside perspective.
Sure.
And so people would be like, well, then, I can see how people would say, well, what do you have to be upset about? What do you have to be sad about? What do you have to be about?
Right.
You know, but it just goes to the point of it doesn't matter what you do or do not have in your status in your life.
Yeah, and the other thing that like, and this doesn't really add to the point at all, but like when I'm depressed, I notice every single mistake I make. I know every single thing that goes wrong in my life. I know every single time that like, and this is something that's really difficult because in my eyes, it's disappointing my wife. In her eyes, it's just, she gets a little frustrated, you know? But like for me, like if I don't do the dishes when I said I was going to do the dishes, that's the worst mistake in the world.
Yeah.
You know, everything hurts so bad and it's all my fault. It's always my fault. Like if, you know, 400 people accidentally like ran into me and like trampled me, I'd be upset at me for being in their way instead of them for not paying attention.
Right.
You know, it's, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to be in your way. I'm sorry. Did you trip on one of my bones? My bad. I'm so sorry. I'll try to do better next time. It's like, they almost killed you. It's like, well, but I shouldn't have been in their way. And it's like, so like that perspective, like everything is a negative. Most everything is a negative. And like, I this also goes into like, there's a fancy word for this, but it's a way of like people with depression, and there's also a few other people that deal with this type of thing, but like neutral input is seen as negative input.
Yeah.
Positive input is seen as neutral input. Extremely positive is where you actually get to the positive.
Yeah.
If you give negative input, it's really negative. If you get really negative, it's like you're the worst person on the planet.
Yeah, when I was seeing a psychiatrist, she explained how depression works and how, like, for normal people, it's hard to explain this when there's no visual aid, but, like, my hands are going across evenly. For normal people, Rose.
Normal people baseline.
Normal people are pretty baseline. They have little tiny ups and downs, and that's basically where normal people stay. For people who are depressed, their highs are really high, and then they plateau, and it's like really deep.
You mean drop?
Yeah.
Plateau's flat.
Oh, whatever. You know.
I'm trying to get a bit verbal for the visual.
What is it called? It's called like a sine wave or something.
Yeah.
So like
the heartbeat.
Yeah, kind of like a heartbeat, but a sine wave. You've got the really short, tiny waves, and that's a normal person on the baseline, and then you've got the really big waves up and down. Yeah. And that's a person who deals with depression.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just that's the typical depressed person. Like every little thing could either be a really high,
right,
or a really low. It's like they don't have that neutral space.
Yeah, that neutral space, it doesn't exist very often. It is either positive or negative. You don't really have many neutral.
Which is why it's so exhausting.
Yeah. And like, and it was odd because I was thinking about that specific thing a while back, and I was realizing that like I had a lot of highs that turned directly into lows really quick, like in seconds sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing I was reading about was like the highs and the lows for people with depression are actually closer together than the middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and one of the biggest examples of that was like I was joking around. I like being the center of attention sometimes. I was doing some like slapstick stuff, and then like as a joke, someone told me to like walk through to the next room, or go through the door into the next room. And so I thought it'd be funny to like purposely misinterpret that and like walk into the door and like smack into it. And the adult there was like, you could have broken that door. And I went from like absolutely like having a blast to like rock bottom in a like few seconds. And my friends go like, what the heck just happened, Joel? What's wrong? Like, because they just saw me having the time of my life, and now I'm like dead.
Yeah.
And they're like, what happened? Because all they saw was an adult being reasonable and going like, hey, don't break stuff.
Yeah.
What I felt was, you almost destroyed everything. You're the worst person, and you should never be doing that, because trying to be funny is the worst thing, and you can break things. And like that spiral happened so fast.
Yeah.
And I realized like that happens a lot, where like I'll get in a groove and like be having fun, and then like something like quickly does like a turn on a dime, straight down, and like but it's like those highs and lows are actually like wrapped around to be right next to each other for people with depression.
Yeah.
Like it's closer to go from absolutely happy to absolutely not happy than for you to go from happy to neutral. Happy to neutral is a farther path for people with depression.
We talked about this before we started recording.
Okay.
But I didn't get a direct answer from you.
Okay.
Do you find like your nutrition or like your foods kind of like help or not help when you are paying attention to like what you're eating? Because I've noticed like when I did like mostly like raw foods, like just fruit, vegetables, grains, and meat, that it was easier to kind of compartmentalize my thoughts. So I don't know if you've ever done something like that, but
I've had a couple diets in my life.
Okay.
And being straightforward, diets don't work very well with ADHD, because that means being conscientious of what you're eating. When I have a problem with making sure I've eaten that day at all, like I've gone days. Okay. Pardon my emotional stuff happening. Apparently my brain thinks this is sad. I don't know why, but no. That was weird. Again, this goes to my point though. Like, it just sometimes it's like, oh, this is sad now. It's like, this is just kind of a thing. Yeah. This is normal.
You can cry. We're talking about depression. It's fine.
As long as you cry and laugh at some point, we got it covered.
But like, there's days that I forget about food entirely. Like I've gone a whole day. I've almost gone 2 days without eating, not on purpose, not like just oops, I forgot each meal.
Right.
And so like with ADHD, trying to not only remember to eat, but also to remember to eat specific things is difficult. Right. Like there's times where I'm like, I guess I'm having cereal for dinner. Why? Because it's something. But I have found that, and this is similar but different, is for me, and this is a very careful line, is like I usually eat comfort foods. Okay. Comfort foods actually help me. Okay. So like that's when I'll like, I mean, you should see how many strawberries I can go through on a bad day. Okay. Like me in December we found like a big like those little green baskets, like 9 of them in a flat, and like they're like stacked high in a box, and I ate the almost top layer of all of them.
Dang, that's a lot of strawberries.
Well, I if someone has an answer for this, I'd love to know what nutrients specifically are in strawberries and almost nothing else, because like my
I know
brain,
they're high in vitamin C, but
And
but there's
antioxidants.
a lot of other things that have those.
I'm sure.
But like,
That's the first
I've learned my brain is very good about cravings. Like it's
Interesting.
very specific. Like it'll be like, I need actual strawberries, not like strawberry milk, not strawberry flavored things, not even like sometimes the outshine bars, which are pretty high in their direct strawberry content, like are not enough. And there's other times where it's like whatever. Sometimes like I need specifically like this type of fruit or this vegetable. Yes.
So they have magnesium and they contain vitamin B9 and potassium.
Potassium would come from bananas.
Well, it says they're in strawberries too.
Yeah. No, it's something because like it's
There's a lot of minerals in them too.
interesting.
So
Yeah, but like it's something like my cravings usually are for something very specific, and so when I indulge in my cravings, usually it's to help me and get the specific things that I need. Like it has less to do with more typical nutritional stuff of like, you know, well, you need to have a balanced diet. It's like, no, I need a strawberry diet right now. Like that's usually one of my stronger ones, but sometimes like I need a banana. Like I need a banana, or like I need something high in sugar or whatever it is. Like my body's very specific about like this is what I get out of this food and this is what you need right now, Joel. So you need that now. Go find it.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's usually not so much as of a diet and a nutritional side in a more commonly seen way, but it's more along the lines of like comfort, like the feel good chemicals or like missing vitamins or minerals.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, when you said comfort food, my brain went to like typical comfort food of like ice cream.
It can be
and, like potato chips,
Yeah,
things like that.
So like,
and then you mentioned strawberries, and I'm like, okay, that's a healthy quote unquote.
well, but like it can be like it can be turned into like straight up like I need to pick out on like Doritos and soda and like just get okay, maybe it's allergies. I don't know now. It's not my nose. Tissues won't help my throat. But like it can be like ice cream and stuff like that. It can be more typical. It can be like I need some junk food in me now. But sometimes it's more specific to like cravings and stuff like that. But yeah.
Cool.
Okay. So I do have a question of so for me I know that there's a difference between my like daily struggle and like my bad day struggle. What does your like daily struggle look like, and then what does your like bad day struggle look like?
Oh, that's a hard one to answer too. You guys are good with questions. I think we talked a lot about like bad day struggle.
Okay.
At least for me, like it's hard to stay motivated when I'm really depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like just getting out of bed is really hard, or like telling myself like just exercise, or you have to do your assignments, you have to go to work, like you have to do X when
You have to get out of bed.
when that is like the main goal of the day.
Right.
But then there's all these other things.
Yeah.
And then it like starts to overwhelm me.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I do get to the other things, it's like I can't even focus on them because
Right.
I just want to be in bed.
You've put so much effort into every step of the day. Every small task is this giant.
Right.
Like, I got one shoe on.
Yep.
There's another shoe. Okay.
Yep.
Great. Got the second shoe on.
Yeah.
Have to go outside too. Yeah.
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 100%. Yeah. That's like bad season of depression is like there's no motivation left.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I call it seasons, because I feel like it's not always that bad.
Right.
Sometimes it's just very like very manageable.
Yeah.
Or like I was saying earlier, I feel numb a lot.
Yeah.
Where it's like I suppress it
Mm-hmm.
because it's like I don't want to deal with this right now, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna like suppress it. Which you brought up a good point with that.
Yeah. So this is something that like my wife helped me understand a little bit more, because like again, she's been with me, she's been a friend and dating, married for a while now. Like,
Yeah.
she noticed that like I'll hit numb before I go into full depression, especially upon necessity.
Yeah.
So like my brain will suppress the depressive feelings and emotions and stuff like that, and like push back those chemical, like, I don't know if it's physically necessarily, but it feels like it,
Yeah.
of like, but it doesn't leave anything for me. So I'm just like, I just get home and I'm just like,
Yeah.
kind of like eyes glazed over, just
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm kind of going through motions.
Yeah.
I don't feel much. And like, I used to think that was different until my wife
Right.
started saying like, no, once you have a break in stress and exhaustion is when the depression, like the normal symptoms kick in. So you go into this numb state first where you like just don't feel things, and then you get to that like, you kind of like break down into this like, okay, now everything makes me feel bad, like I feel worthless, all these other feelings come later.
Right.
But my brain is resilient enough to go like, you can't break down, because if you break down now, work's gonna fall apart. Like you are needed right now.
Yeah.
The moment you have a break in that, like, I need to go
Yeah.
is when your brain goes, okay, we're done holding back this whole wall of bad feelings. Here you go.
Yeah.
And then it gets dropped on you and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna sleep for, I don't know, 30,000 hours.
Can I just sleep through high school?
But like that feeling of like, I don't know, I need a nap for an undetermined amount of times between 10 minutes to like
A day.
the rest of my life, maybe.
Yeah.
Like I can sleep for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Right.
at least.
Yeah, but like it hits you like a flood. At least for me, I will say, like that numbness breaks away to this flood of like just completely drained,
Yeah.
like feel absolutely rock bottom, and just like,
It definitely can. It doesn't
yeah.
always.
Well, not always.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it can push through past that, like it can hold off long enough for your brain to get
Right.
chemicals right.
Yeah.
But for me, usually I don't have that happen. Usually it breaks into that full bout of depression. But I think it can have that, like, okay, you made it back through that like dip in life to make it out the other side fairly unscathed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just something that my wife taught me about how my brain works.
I mean, like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean, now I'm going to pay more attention to it, like,
Yeah.
because, I've noticed I have been in a season of, like, being numb right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not necessarily depressed, but I'm just kind of, like...
You kind of going through motions.
Yeah.
And like for me, it comes from that like needing to not break down.
Yeah.
Like, I am a manager. I'm also one of the few things that keeps our activities running. If I break down,
Right.
I don't have a job anymore. Basically,
Yeah.
camp doesn't run half as smoothly because all the groups are going. Why don't we have hatchets? Well, because no one fixed the handles. And like, so I have to push through.
Yeah.
And that's usually where I find that numb state is.
Yeah.
I don't have the luxury of breaking down.
Have you talked to anyone before? Like, have you done any therapy or?
I have not yet. I'm working on that.
Okay.
And I have, when I was younger is when I got the diagnosis, and through like my young adulthood is when I got like some doctors giving me options, but I don't really like most of the options for depression medication. For like, this is a decision that I have made of like, I don't like those options.
Yeah.
Because for me, most of the depression medications that I've been offered have a risk of those suicidal thoughts. And
Yeah.
I'm blessed not to have those thoughts. And so taking medication that could open up new options for my depression, I'd rather not take that.
Yeah.
And that, like I said, that's me. I know people that take them, and I support them for that.
Yeah.
But
It's
I
a
think
case by case thing.
each person
Yeah.
needs to make that decision for themselves. But for me, it's something that I've decided not to take for it. But I'm looking at I'm trying to get into like therapy and getting my ADHD officially diagnosed, which my wife and I have talked about. Like, we think that the ADHD might help the depression a little bit.
Oh.
Or
How?
that's depression speak for it. It has a decent chance of helping the depression because ADHD handles a different side of those feel good chemicals.
Sorry, clarifying question, because you spoke in circles for a little bit.
Sorry.
So you're dealing with the ADHD could help deal with depression?
Yes.
Okay.
So ADHD, so I was talking about earlier about like depression, that like 10 feel good chemicals turns into 5. That's the output of those feel good chemicals. That's how much your brain produces. With depression, it gets cut into that, like I said, half. ADHD typically presents itself as having either less receptors for that, or the receptors don't work at full function. So what you receive out of that with depression and ADHD, you get you produce like that 5 feel good chemicals. With ADHD, you only get about 2 or 3 of those feel good chemicals.
Okay.
So if you can treat the ADHD and open up those receptors better, you can get that whole 5 instead of just 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And that can help with keeping you on the higher end of that, that flat line, that middle ground, that neutral ground.
Yeah.
That can help with that. So if I can treat the ADHD well, it might help with the depression, being able to keep those that feel good chemicals on the higher side for me. For the average person, that's still not a lot, but for me, that's significant.
Right.
Yeah.
So who do you go to talk about that? Do you have a
Right
doctor?
now, friends.
Oh. I meant doctor wise. How do you get your ADHD more?
I'm working with my insurance to figure that out.
Okay.
But the various levels of therapists, depending on where you what county you're in and state, and a whole bunch of stuff depends on who can actually diagnose, and then also who can prescribe. Because some places, if I remember correctly, don't take my word for this, audience, but I think some places like your primary health care provider can diagnose and prescribe medication.
Oh.
Some you need a
neurologist, maybe?
I forget, but there's with therapy, there's a certain level that one side's I think a therapist can't prescribe medication and a psychologist can.
Yes, a psychologist
I think
can.
it's sometimes you have to go to a psychologist to get the diagnosis and the medication for it. But it just varies, and so trying to work with insurance to figure out how to get all that covered, or as much of it covered as possible.
Yeah.
Because ADHD medication is not as cheap as it should be, I think. But that goes for a lot of medications.
That
So
goes for pretty much everything.
I'm not nitpicking specifically on ADHD. I'm just saying in general, medication is a little steep. But anyway.
Yeah. That could be its own podcast.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rose. No, it's okay. So Joel, you had posed 2 questions, and you both answered one of them of how you deal with depression on the when you're in the depths of it.
Mm.
But I don't know that you guys answered the day-to-day struggle question.
I don't know if I know how to answer that question. Do you know how to answer that question?
Okay.
A little bit.
Because
a little bit, not a lot, but
that's what makes it so hard. Because it's
the daily stuff is difficult, especially when you don't know how to react to things.
Yeah.
Trying to stop yourself and think, is this an appropriate response?
Yeah.
That is really difficult.
Because when your mind is constantly doing
up and down,
this,
yeah,
on the day to day,
right.
How do you? Yeah, how do you function?
I can give a very recent example of this. We had an adventure before we started recording this episode. Today.
Told you.
So, I didn't think it'd be practical until we started talking about this specific question. So, I drove about an hour and a half to record this podcast. I packed up all my gear, drove all the way out here, and I'm setting up, and I realized I don't have a microphone. Okay. I thought maybe it fell out of my luggage and like rolled in the car or something. I checked the car, and then I started panicking.
Mm-hmm.
I started going through things. I called my wife and like, babe, can you check these places? Because this is the only place I could think it would be at home if I didn't pack it, but I'm pretty sure I packed it. And trying to, at that moment, regulate, like, okay, I could go to one side of, like, it's fine, it's chill, like, they'll understand, like, hey, we planned this whole thing out, scheduled the whole thing, and we're going to sit and talk, and I'm going to go home. Like, we're not going to record anything. They'll be fine. Or my other option is the very other side of, like, oh my gosh, they're gonna hate me because like I made them like plan the whole thing. They're introverts. They don't want to be hanging on people as much as possible. Like they're gonna hate me, and I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna cry because I wasted my whole day. And like, but here's the thing. That's the like my choices are like completely blow everything off. And like it's fine. I should be happy. It's okay. Or it's everything's the worst and everybody's going to hate me because I forgot this microphone, which is kind of integral to the whole thing. And then on the other side, dealing with it from my perspective of my mistake of forgetting a microphone. Probably. I still don't know what happened to the microphone. I don't know where it is. But like, I have to deal with, okay, are you just a really dumb person that like, wow, didn't even think to check for a microphone, didn't notice when you looked through your equipment 3 times today, didn't notice a microphone's missing, you idiot. Or like, oh, it might be somewhere else. Like I have to like balance these extreme reactions to things and decide. I don't get a choice of middle. I get to choose like it's fine and I should be happy about it, or it's the end of the world. It's you're a complete idiot, or you're probably pretty smart and just something happened in the middle. Maybe it got stolen. Like those are like the extremes I have to like choose between. And so like in those day-to-day moments, I have to go like, what's the closest to normal response to this?
That's a good question. What is the closest to the normal response?
And so like when people say like, your shirt doesn't match your shoes, you have to go, okay, try to imagine a normal person.
Hey.
How would they respond to that?
Thanks, I'm not near a closet.
Right, but like, and then going with your extreme responses of like, well, this is my style and you need to back up. Like, okay, that's a little aggressive. All right, that's a little aggressive. Okay, the other side, cry. Okay, what's closest to normal?
Cry?
In this situation, I'm gonna go with cry. Because the other one's a little aggressive and can turn into a fight. Like, like that decision making of like which extreme, the high or the low, am I going with? Which is closer to a reasonable response to things. And like having people that can help you when they know you're in that. Like my wife's pretty good about like, when I was talking on the phone, as I'm like, like pre-crying.
Oh, and by the way, audience, I came out and was like, "Are you okay down there?" And he just shrugs.
Yeah, and Rose came back upstairs and she's like, "I don't think he's okay."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why? What happened?" She's like, "He can't find the microphone." I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah, but like I was sitting there, and when she asked, I didn't know. Yeah. That was I'm trying to handle these like real time.
Well, she knew.
I knew.
Well, she knew I wasn't doing fantastic. She knew things weren't going well, but I didn't know if I was going to handle this like, I guess this is just a loss, and well, you know what? Let's just move on, and tomorrow's a brand new day. Or if it was going to be like, I'm going to cry and just like it's the worst day ever.
You know, if you had cried, we wouldn't have minded.
Yeah.
I again, the intellectual side of me knows that. My emotional side doesn't. But like December was able to help me. They're like, okay, well, see if you can figure out a way to do it. Figure out what options are there. Like figure out what's going on. What can you do? And if you have to reschedule for like next Monday or something like that, they'll understand. Mm-hmm. It's like bringing me back to like reality is something I wouldn't be able to do. Like myself, I wouldn't have that capacity. But having somebody else next to you, with you, to go, hey, realistically, it's gonna be fine. It sucks, but it's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Like that, like someone else that can get you to that middle ground is awesome.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Being able to like communicate with people like
Right.
what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Which I'm not always good about doing because I want to be able to like get
Right.
myself to the normal ground. Like I don't want to have to depend on other people because then
And
that makes you also feel like you're burdening them.
So I feel a little weird because I feel awkward when I tell people that are older than me and have more experience in things that I have learned in shorter periods of time, just because I feel like I'm trying to brag or something like that, but I'm not. But like I have learned, this is why I'm open. I'm not saying you have to be, but this is why I'm so open with so many people. Is if I can tell Billy Bob, I've been really resorting to Billy Bob recently as a random NPC. But like Billy Bob, non-playable character.
Oh.
It's a gaming term.
Yeah, it's anybody
Wrong
that's
audience here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But like
Don't
random person. I've been using Billy Bob a lot. Anyway,
Okay.
but like if I can, like, if Billy Bob asks me like, "How are you doing?" I'm like, dealing with some depression, casually. Then when like Rose or my wife December or something like that asks like, "Hey, how are you doing?" It means that I can open up. For me, it means I can open up more to them. Mm-hmm. If I can tell that like surfacing that I used to not tell anybody really at all. Like I didn't tell anybody I had depression. Yeah. I knew I had depression, but I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
Once I started telling more people and being open with like, this is a struggle I have.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It made it easier for me to go like, I can't go to this party tomorrow. My depression is killing me. I'm sorry, but I can't. Yeah,
and I feel that with certain circles, like I mentioned before, but like in general.
Well, but what I mean is it helps you scale that. Yeah. So you can share with more people more things, which then helps them help you more. And it's also very counterintuitive in depression, like struggling with it, to go, I need to put more on my friends. It is one of the hardest things in the world to do, but it's one of the most helpful things to do. Yeah. At least in my experience, it's like, once I'm like telling December, like, hey, I'm not doing great, and she can like, okay, hey, we're gonna go watch a movie. It's like, okay, cool. And then you like after you get past that initial like the I put a shoe on stage of that thing, it's easier because you realize like they actually don't mind that little extra weight, which is kind of crazy. Like it's a crazy feeling in that moment of like. Oh, they don't care. Like it's, and for me, I'm able to see it as like, they don't actually mind that extra weight on their shoulders. Yeah. It is extra weight on their shoulders, but they're okay with that. Which is really mind-boggling when you're dealing with this. Yeah. Like it's mind-boggling to like, so I am a burden, but it's okay. How does that make any sense? Like, yeah.
Hey guys, so sorry to have to cut it off there. This is too long of a conversation to keep it in one episode, so tune in 2 weeks for part 2, where we'll finish talking about depression and all that goes into it. Thank you so much for listening. As always, a shout out to Milana Dodd for her amazing work making my cover art. You can check her out on our website at milanadodd.com or Instagram at Milana's Design. Always go check out December's website, December Noel or December Noel Photo for her amazing photography. Check out what she does if you're looking for any sort of like family photos or anything like that. And December's doing a photo a day this whole year, so go check out her Instagram for all of those amazing photos. Braden Slens is working on some new episodes of the Coaster Gnome, so go check that out. He takes people that don't know like as much about roller coasters as him and asks them questions about their favorite roller coaster and their favorite rides and stuff. It's a lot of fun. Also, our guest today, you can find Jackie Bender at Jack_Elizabeth91. That's JAC_Elizabeth91. and go check out what she does and all that. Um, like Rose said, you can find her on LinkedIn or Facebook, and that's just Rose Circo. And all of these will be linked in the description below. And as always, you can reach me on Twitter at Joel Circo, on Instagram at CuriousJoelcast, or email me at curiousjoelcast@gmail.com. And if you like what you hear, please take a moment and just share this episode and the show, and just take a moment to rate and review the show. That really does a lot for me. And as always, thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all on the next episode.